Welcome everyone. In this video I will be explaining GET APIs. So it will cover get all by stream, get by ID, and query for get data and query for get data by stream. When you install MySQL database version 8 in API Maker Cloud, you will get this inventory database by default. Now in inventory database, these are the tables available. Database structure is like this. So we will be sending queries to the order transactions table. It has the order ID connected to this orders table, customers, address, like this. First we'll select the instance type as a MySQL 8, which was created earlier. Database is inventory and order transactions table, and simply send the data. Will receive the data. Let's start with the skip. So right now we are getting quite a few records here. First we'll getting ID with 2, ID with 3 and 4. So let's skip 3 records. Now let's send. So it will skip 2, 3 and 4 IDs, and after that it will retrieve the data. Now out of these many data, we want only 5 records. So we'll again send and we'll get 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So these skip and limit are very useful in pagination. Now this get total count is also very useful in pagination. So when we select it as a true and when we send that, we'll get one more property, that total count is 18. So total 18 records are there in this table. Out of them we are skipping 3 and we are getting 5. That's why we have this kind of output. Now on top of that, we can also send filter queries like this. Let's remove this first. Now let's send filter which has a product ID 2. So we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 order transactions related to product ID 2. Now we can also send order ID 2. We have only one record. So we can have n number of where conditions, you can say, in this simple API call. Get all API is get API, so it will not support body payload. So we need to send all the query parameters in URL itself. So how we'll send that? We can have this type of curl, and inside that find, skip, select, order IDs to, product IDs to, like that. You can generate this type of structure for many other programming languages also. Okay, now let's go back to query. Okay, for example, price is also there for 200, let's say. So only one record will be there. When we get the data and we don't want to get all the properties of the row, we can specify which one we want. So let's say we want to select only product ID, price, so those will be comma separated. So only those will be retrieved. Okay, now clear everything. Let's say now we can use these type of filters with combination of skip, limit, sort, everything. So entire pagination, entire grid we can implement on server side rendering. Now these are the default data. Now let's sort the data. So we want to sort by amount, let's say. So we'll simply pass amount, that's it. So all the data will be sorted based on amount. Let's select only amount so we can see quickly. So amount 200, 400. Okay, now when we started with a minus, data will be in reverse order. We can also pass multiple fields in sort. For example, I want to sort based on amount and the price, comma with the price, like that. Okay. Now there is one more property, deep. I will just quickly explain you what is the deep. So deep will try to retrieve the data from nested table. So let's say in our order transactions, we have this order ID, which is foreign key from the orders table. This is product ID, which is foreign key from the products table. So simply type order underscore ID and it will populate entire order data into this property like this. Okay, now we want to also populate a product ID, so simply comma and product ID. So we can have n number of properties like this. Also we can go n number of depth. Let's say in product ID we have category ID also, and we want to populate that category ID also. So path will be product ID dot category ID. So comma product underscore ID dot category ID. Okay. Now there are many other properties in deep, but we'll have a separate video for that. Now let's go to get all by stream. So simply press the send button. This get all stream is also same as the get all. This also is a get method, so everything we need to pass in the query parameters. The only difference is this will stream the data. So when we want to retrieve huge amount of data, this method will get the data in a small chunks. So our server will not have a high memory spike, and continuously it will keep getting data from the database. So that is the main purpose. All other fields are same. Now let's go to get by ID API. In get by ID we have support of parameters, which are the values inside the URL. After that we have some query parameters. So inside the parameters we have ID and primary key. ID is going to be primary key value, so it is just 2, so we'll get the only one object in response. Now this primary key is useful just in case we have multiple primary keys in one table. We can override that value, for example like this. So it will retrieve the value object, only one object, which has ID 2 and order ID. Primary key is order ID, let's say 3, like this. In this case these both are same, so we won't see the difference. Also in the query parameters section we can specify how many fields we want to populate, and it will retrieve only those fields. Also the deep feature is also supported, so we can simply pass the IDs and it will populate those data into nested way. Now let's go to the query for get data. This is post API, so in this we need to pass everything as a body payload. Now when you generate the default structure, it will show you how you can pass the find, limit, skip, select, sort and deep population. Okay, let's remove this deep for now. And we don't need other properties also. Simply find with a empty find, and when we send it like this. Depopulate supports 3 ways: simple string, which we saw earlier, and now order ID like this. And there is other object way also. In object way we need to pass it as a source key like this. Okay, when we want to pass multiple keys, comma separated objects and product ID like this. Here passing in object way we can pass other properties like select, so we'll get only name and description for the product. Now let's go to the stream variant of this same API. This API also works same way as other API. Only difference is that it will get data in chunks from database and sends to user in small chunks. Let's say if you want to retrieve few thousands of data, you can use normal API. When you want to retrieve millions of data, you should use streams API. Normal API gets all the data from database in one go and give the response. so it will hold those data in memory up to response is completely sent to user. Streams API will get small data and send to user again and again up to response is completely written. Let's go to custom API and see how we can use this auto-generated API in our custom code. So this is simple custom API code. Press Ctrl I in Windows or Command I in Mac or insert this code button. Let's go to the examples tab, select this get all and insert the code. It will insert that code directly in our code. We'll format the code, Alt Shift F, will return the get all. Instance name is MySQL 8, database name is inventory and collection name is order transactions. Run the code and you will get the data. We can also pass query parameters here like this in object way, and the other properties are there. And in this getAll API we can directly pass the product ID also like this. So instead of getting all the data, we'll get the filtered data. This way you can use them in a code. And if you want to see more examples for other APIs, you can simply check the getAll stream, getAll by stream. It will be working like this. So it will get the data one by one and it will execute these callbacks one by one. We are collecting this response and we can return this response, or we can process, or we can insert in any other database. It depends on our business logic. Like this. So we can also log the data. Let's say we can use console.log and item. We execute that and everything will be logged one by one. Let's clear the log and see in this log. For this log we can execute g.logger.log and like this. So these logs will be saved, but when you do console log, they will not be saved into the specific API call. Just for info, we'll get the everything in detail for separate video. Now let's check the other APIs. So let's go to the get by ID. So get by ID also same as instance, database and collection, and we can pass the ID and we'll get the data. Same way query for get data and query for get data by stream works. So instant database collection and the find object, and same here, instant database collection find object, and we'll get the data one by one. Now in the getAll API, the find property remains to explain. In this property we can pass the JSON5 object as a query. So when I pass the simple empty object, we'll get the everything. We'll send that. Now I want to pass it as a order ID too. So without any double quote, we can simply directly pass the order ID because it is JSON5. Now pass the amount. So comma separated value amount 200. We'll send that, and payment method will select cash. Single quote or double quote, both are valid in JSON5, so we can send accordingly. Other than this normal equals operator, there are other operators are also supported. Open the documentation and we'll go to the APIs, generated APIs or schema based APIs, getAll, and in a find we can pass with this $= and the value, or $in operator, and we can pass multiple values in array. Greater than, equal to, less than or is equal to, not in, those are the supported. Now inside the query parameters, we can directly pass the key name and value and greater than and 3. How we can use this in a UI? Let's see. We want to see order transaction greater than ID 3. So we can pass ID greater than 3 like this. So we'll start from the 4. Now let's say we want to pass greater than or equal to. Then greater than will be this side. The separator is already saying equal to, and when we type 3 in the right side, it will include that 3. But in actual query parameters, as you can see, it will be passed directly like this, greater than or equal to 3 like this. Let's have a quick look on find join feature. In this data, let's say we are getting all the data. Let's depopulate. Okay, now we want to find all the order transactions of the category ID 1 or of the name electronics. So how we can write this query? In the one API call, we can directly write like this: product ID dot category ID dot name is going to be electronics. So let's say we have some data of music and laptop also. Let's send, and we'll get all the data of electronics. So these are all the order transaction of electronics. Let's take it as a laptop. So these are the laptop order transactions. The same way we can write for ID 2, or when ID is also matched 1 to 1, so we can skip the ID. In case of ID, we can skip the ID. So product ID and category ID is going to be 2. That's it. So this is find join. We can use these for any database type. So it is not necessary we can get the data like this from the MySQL to MySQL. No, we can get from any database supported types. We have support for 8 database types. The same way, depopulate also supports across the database types. So we can populate data from any database type up to n number of levels. So full flexibility there. We will have a separate video for this find join feature and depopulate feature. Thank you for watching and have a nice backend development.